All right, so let's shift to the Heisman Trophy discussion. There's been some movement in the market after last weekend. We just talked about Cam Ward, and I agree, Johnny. It looked like he was playing fast, but in slow motion. It just looked like he was so composed and comfortable out there. And I mean, it didn't hurt that Florida couldn't really generate pressure off of the edge, but he's going to be playing in front of a really good offensive line all season long. As a result of all of the movement this weekend, there's just a cluster of quarterbacks at the top of the market. Dylan Gabriel, who, underwhelming Oregon performance, but he put up numbers and threw it nearly 50 times. Jaxson Dart for Ole Miss, who's going to put up numbers all year. Cam Ward, who I mentioned, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Nico from Tennessee. I'm curious to see how he performs against a pretty complicated Tony Gibson defense at NC State this week. Will Howard, Miller Moss. So, then you have Travis Hunter, who obviously has the unique distinction of playing on both sides of the ball. Can Colorado win enough games is the question. If I had to sprinkle on someone, it might be Drew Allar. He's come down a little bit, but he looked great. And that was the first game in Andy Kotelnicki's offense. He looked like he had a great grasp of it. Now, I don't know if he's going to have the overall numbers as far as, rushing and just, number of touchdowns, but he was super efficient in week one. Got an easy schedule coming up where you can just put up some numbers and get more on the radar. And Penn State looked like they could be a really good team. And that a lot of times plays into it. There are exceptions where you don't need to be like in the college football playoff mix. Johnny, you know about that. Lamar Jackson also comes to mind there. James Daniels, who just won it. But Drew Allar, he's intriguing to me. Johnny, any thoughts on the Heisman race as a former Heisman Trophy winner, and who would be your favorite as of right now?
Yeah, I think right now, obviously, I really like the way Cam Ward played this week. I know we've spoke on him a lot already so far. I think he's got off to a good start. Another guy who I would really keep an eye on throughout the early part of the season. You come out in the first game, he threw for 445 yards, is Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss. I think anybody who's playing in a Lane Kiffin system has a great opportunity who's going to go out and sling the ball a lot every single week and put up big numbers. As we know with Lane Kiffin, the guy is a little bit of a wizard when it comes to the pass game. We've seen him from Alabama in the past, what he's been doing as a head coach on his own. But I think anytime you have a quarterback that's in his system, you're going to be able to go put up numbers. And I think, a great week one start for Jaxson Dart to be able to, boost his odds a little bit and put himself in a good position if he can keep this up throughout the season, which, it wouldn't surprise me if he did.
Yeah, Cam Ward also will have Jaxson Dart can get you some too, but Cam Ward has potential to have the upside of the rushing yards and the rushing touchdowns, right? Which to pad those stats and just to make it even a more complete season. Colin, any thoughts on the updated Heisman race?
Yeah, Drew Allar, you mentioned him already. I think we waited 8 games last year before the Penn State offense allowed him to throw over 20 yards. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Now they're doing it as time's running down in the first half.
Right. He completed 2 passes over 20 yards, 1 for a touchdown. The Kotelnicki playbook has been absorbed. He is executing, and I expect it to get better and better. And remember, this Penn State schedule outside of 2 games, it's pretty soft. So I think that is a number at 28-1 that definitely can rise.
Yeah, I think Drew Allar definitely is in the mix, and you could see his odds rise up with a pretty soft schedule coming up, starting with Bowling Green, where you could put up some numbers this weekend. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the game on Sunday night between LSU and USC. One of the best games of the weekend, just as far as competitiveness and the quality of play. Both quarterbacks looked really good, and both defense also looked improved from last year. But Miller Moss, his accuracy was on point. Garrett Nussmeier also had full control of that offense. I think both of those quarterbacks showed well. Now, Nussmeier's not going to have the rushing yards that Daniels did. They've already lost the game. They got to go through the SEC gauntlet. The defense has improved, but probably still an area of weakness. I'm not sure if they can win enough games. Miller Moss is intriguing. Now, he's also not going to have the rushing yards, but USC has such a tough schedule. John, did you get a chance to watch either of those quarterbacks, and do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of it. I think Miller Moss obviously has been waiting and kind of biding his time to get a chance to be the guy. And then you get a chance to come out in pretty much a primetime game on the first week of the season and go make, a substantial amount of plays when it came down to it, when it came down to crunch time. that his team needed him to make. So, I mean, as that, I don't think you can walk out of that stadium and have any more confidence leaving than Miller Moss did the other night.
Yep. Colin, any thoughts on Moss or Nussmeier, or just that game in general?
Well, we were on Moss for potential Heisman winners preseason, and he lived up to that here. And I know his average depth of target was only 7.1 yards. You'd like that to be a little bit longer. But what we don't see that's in the box score is that he had 5 big-time throws and 0 turnover-worthy plays. He does not make a mistake. He runs that offense like a general. And USC is going to completely exceed their expectations from odds makers, which was 6.5 wins on the season.
Yeah, that dot that he dropped on the free play, I think he went 5 of 5 on passes 20+ yards down the field, but that was an unbelievable throw. He had some tight window throws that were super impressive, NFL level accuracy from Miller Moss. So USC definitely a much more intriguing team that many might have thought coming into the season, because it looks like Moss is going to be a player, and he carried over that performance from the bowl last year against Louisville. And the hope was the defense will be better under a new regime, bring in some transfers in the back end, and that looked to be the case. So USC is definitely an intriguing player in the new Big Ten. Still sounds weird to say that out loud. Also, Colorado has a couple of guys in the Heisman mix in Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Already mentioned that Travis Hunter has the benefit of playing on both sides of the ball, which he's pretty much the only one who can say that in college football. And then you have Shedeur Sanders, who he's just going to put up crazy numbers. Now, he's not much of a runner, and but they don't have a running game, and it's just going to be him dropping back. They're going to go empty personnel, so he's going to put up the numbers this year. I just don't know if Colorado can win enough games. The defense is still an issue. There's no run game. The offensive line, I think, is still an issue. But him and Travis Hunter are going to put up numbers. I'm just not sure at their current prices I can get to backing either, because I don't think Colorado is going to win enough games. But they're going to certainly put up video game numbers. Johnny, any thoughts on either?
Yeah, I think the one thing they do have is they're going to have the ability to be seen every single week. And if I'm Shedeur Sanders, I'm getting the ball to Travis Hunter every single week. Obviously in the Heisman race, it's kind of knocking them off a little bit at each other. But I think, for Colorado to be good this year, it's going to have to run through those two guys, and they're going to need to do something extremely special. I mean, anytime you're throwing 5-yard hitch routes and Travis Hunter is able to take that to the house, as a quarterback sitting there, you have to feel really good about having a guy like that. Obviously, as you mentioned, them not being able to run the ball is going to put more pressure on Shedeur. But if he can come out and continue to make plays week in and week out, who says this guy can't throw for 4,500 plus yards, throw for a lot of yards in this offense? I think that's Shadeur's best chance, is to obviously feed Travis Hunter, and, they're going to need him and rely on him a lot. So, it's a lot of pressure, but if you live up to it, I think he can give himself a realistic chance. We'll just see if their defense can hold up. Obviously, you're going to need to be able to stay in some of these games, and they were in a dogfight in week 1.
Yep. Yeah, and you definitely know what it's like to have a reliable security blanket in Mike Evans playing with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Travis is as special of a player as we've seen, not only playing both sides of the ball, but just from a receiver position. I mean, this guy's making catches, and his speed and quickness and getting in and out of these breaks is something that it really jumps off the tape and jumps off the page every single week you watch him play.
Yeah. How good was Mike Evans, by the way, in college?
Mike Evans was a guy who, his first year getting there was still learning a lot about football and what it was. He was very much a basketball player. And as he progressed through every spring, through every fall, this guy turned into be an absolute monster, and legitimately, could throw a screen out there that's a 0-yard pass that he just stiff arms somebody into the dirt, and has a 4.4 speed to be able to get away from that. So, really one of those, I feel like, generational college football guys, and somebody I was very lucky to be able to get to share the field with.